Okay, so a little bit more about my life at this time. I, yes, was very close to my sister and my mother. My sister and I spent a lot of time together, but I had forgiven them for, losing my house and what they did to me. I'm always a very forgiving person. Life goes on. I don't hold it. But this message that my mother got this day about Loretta will get hers when you get yours. My mother was a spiritual person. I couldn't understand her real spiritual side because most spiritual people are very loving, whereas my mother had a very nasty streak to her. And I found it hard to believe that she could be such a spiritual person with this real narcissistic side. But thinking back now, it's probably more because she never healed from traumas that happened in her life and carried those over. And it really destroyed the person that she possibly could have been. I also knew as a young person that, yes, I had this spiritual side to me as well, because I had actually seen things that were going to happen in the future before they happened to different people over time. But I suppressed it because I didn't want to be the person like my mother. So I used to ignore that side of me and would just think, no, because that's what kind of person my mother was. And I didn't want to be like that. But I don't have a vindictive, nasty, mean bone in my body. And I didn't then, and I still don't. Another thing that my mother told me, in which she was correct, was that she told me that I was going to have a new man in my life and that his name would be Bob. And at that time, there was this other guy hanging around, and I thought, oh, no, that's not going to happen. She said, you're going to be very happy. And when that's not going to happen, that's like jumping out of the pan into the fire, being with this guy. And she told me exactly how he was going to wear. He wore his Akubra hat, where I was going to meet him, and his name, what kind of build he was, everything. She described him to a T. And yes, it was a few months later, unexpectedly, I met my second husband, and he wore his Akubra hat, how my mother said he would. His name, his star sign, everything was him. And he was, yes, a big, cuddly bear. A few little things that happened with my mother and her spiritual side. Actually, I do remember as a child her having seances all the time. And I do remember seeing weird things happening with seances. But anyway, we'll leave that behind. Yes, my first marriage had broken up. I was going through a bit of turmoil, trying to find houses and look after my daughter and work and things. And for this 1 week, I was thinking solidly about my cousin, and I was quite emotional about it. Now, my cousin got killed in a car accident when I was about 12. My stepfather was still alive when my cousin got killed, and I just adored him. And for some reason, for a week, I was just thinking about him, thinking, oh, I wish he was here. I really want to talk to him. And I was I hadn't told my mother about this. And I was sitting at her kitchen table, and we were having a cup of tea this one day and just sort of generally talking. And she looked up at me and she just said, Ronnie said to tell you he loves you. Well, this was my cousin that I was thinking about. And I just burst into tears. I said, I've been thinking about him for a week. I feel him everywhere. She said, yes, he's standing beside you. That shocked the living hell out of me that she knew about this. So she did have gifts. So at this time, I had also found my daughter a beautiful little sporting pony. He was a giveaway in the paper. He was about 28 years old. So the child that grew up, he took her up through the ranks, had finished with him. Nobody really wanted him because of his age, but I went to have a look at this pony and he was beautiful. And I got him for nothing. Golden Buck was his name. He was a buckskin, top sporting pony. He took my daughter to limits that were amazing. He also came with a rug and bridle and halter. So that was her sorted. Then I purchased a big thoroughbred. That was a B or A grade show jumper. I can't remember now what he was, but he was a magnificent looking animal. And because of where I lived, we had to mainly ride around on the roads. So my daughter and I'd go riding, and a whole bunch of friends, we'd go riding. I remember we went down the beach at Wynnum one day and we were riding along the beach and we weren't supposed to be there. And the police came and chased us and we took off on the horses, running through everywhere when they couldn't catch us, and then we eventually hid and got home. But we never went and rode on the beach again because that wasn't something you should do. I was riding this big horse one day and I was going over to visit one of my girlfriends who lived not that far away from me, and we were going riding. Now, between her place and mine used to be this rickety old wooden timber bridge, and under the bridge was 4 lanes of train lines. So I've gone to ride over this and I seen this train coming, so I stopped my horse and waited for the train to pass under the bridge before I went over. And I got halfway over when I didn't notice another train coming from the opposite direction. And I thought, oh my God, I'm dead here, because this train went straight under his feet. So I just stopped him still and just let him stand there. And I was terrified. I thought I was going to get killed. And anyway, the train just went under his feet. He put his head down and snorted. And then we decided we were going ahead, walk ahead. And as I was just starting to pull myself together and continue to walk across this bridge, this lady come up over the side of the bridge, because there was a set of stairs there to come up onto the road, and she knew me and she goes, oh, hello Loretta, how are you? And my horse shit himself, and so did I. And I thought, oh, how could you do that to me right now? But I survived. We got across the bridge all right, but that really scared me. I thought I was down to be dead. I had this horse for quite a while, and we did a lot of different things together. Loved him. And one night, because he was in a paddock behind my cousin's place, who just lived across the road and down a couple from where I was, so he was close. And my daughter's pony was in there also. When my cousin came over one night, in the middle of the night, and he said, there's a horrible noise out here with the horses, you better come over. So I went over, and it looked like somebody had actually driven through the paddock, and here was my horse with a horrific injury to his rear hock. What it actually looked like was that somebody had put barbed wire around one of his legs and then had actually cut his hock off, to the point where I couldn't save him. So I got a vet out that night, and he gave him some painkillers, and I put him down the next day, which was devastating to me. And apparently there was about 4 horses, a few of my friends' horses, all really well-bred, really good quality show horses, had all been done at the same time. Nobody was game enough to stand up and say anything, whereas I went to the paper and, said this is happening to these horses and things. But nobody took any notice. One of my girlfriend's horses had exactly the same injury. She ended up saving her horse because he was a stallion. He was used for breeding, whereas my horse was no longer any good for riding or particularly show jumping. And another couple of my friends' horses had horrific injuries. So that sparked me to move out of Brisbane. So it was a little while after I'd put Bourbon down and I was looking at moving out of Brisbane. It was now gone 12 months since my separation from my first husband, so I applied for my divorce. And I did my divorce myself. I filled out all the paperwork. I had a detective friend of mine that went and handed my ex-husband his divorce papers in the Capalaba Tavern. He apparently was quite inebriated at the time, and but he never showed up in court. And the judge, when I went to court, he said, where's the other party? Why is he not here? And I said, I don't know. I had a stat dec signed by this detective to say that he had handed him the papers. So the divorce was just signed off in court and done, finished. So that was him out of my life. I'd run into the guy that used to own the property up of Gatton where my first marriage had broken up. And I had a talk to him and I said, I want to move out of town. And his property was vacant up there. And he said, why don't you go back up there? So I did. I packed up my daughter, her horse. The property had 2 houses on. So my sister and her 2 kids and my sister's partner ended up coming up there too. But my sister's partner used to work away a lot. So he wasn't there much. But off we go back out to Gatton, or out of Gatton, and starting all over again.